I thought one accidental like would disappear by morning, buried under 1,000 notifications and the mercy of the internet. Instead, it made the most intimidating alpha at Iron Haven Fitness walk straight toward me like I had left my fingerprints on a crime scene. My name was Ethan Walker, and I had built my entire life around one simple rule: do not be noticed. Not by customers, not by alphas, and definitely not by Caleb Brooks. At 22, I worked the early shift behind the smoothie bar, where the lights came on before sunrise and the gym smelled like rubber mats, cold metal, citrus cleaner, and ambition. Every morning at 5:30, I unlocked the side door, pulled on my gray hoodie, checked the suppressant patch beneath my sleeve, and told myself I was just another tired college senior trying to pay rent. In a place like Iron Haven, that was the safest thing an Omega could be. Invisible. I wiped counters, filled ice bins, stacked protein tubs, and practiced keeping my eyes down whenever the free weight area started filling with men who treated the mirrors like confession booths. Then Caleb would arrive at exactly 6:10. Always the same black gym bag over one shoulder. Always the same dark jacket. Always that quiet, unreadable expression that made the whole room adjust itself around him without anyone admitting it. Caleb Brooks was 25, a personal trainer, former college athlete, and the kind of alpha people lowered their voices around. His hair was dark, his eyes were a sharp gray, and his scent, when he came close enough for my body to notice despite the blockers, reminded me of cedarwood, winter mint, and rain on concrete. He never flirted. He barely smiled. He ordered the same drink every day, black coffee protein, no sugar, and said thank you in a voice so low it felt like it belonged behind a locked door. I had a crush on him, which was humiliating, inconvenient, and completely private until last night. I could not sleep after studying for my anatomy exam, so I made the mistake of opening his profile. Just once, I told myself, just to look at the newest post and close the app like a normal person. But normal people did not scroll 3 years deep into someone's photos at 1:47 in the morning. Normal people did not pause on an old competition picture where Caleb stood in front of a locker room mirror, tired and silent, looking less like a perfect alpha and more like someone who had won something and still felt alone. I stared too long. My thumb slipped. The little heart turned red. For one full second, my soul left my body. I unliked it so fast my phone almost flew out of my hand. Then I sat upright in bed, staring at the screen while my apartment went silent around me. Maybe he would not see it. Maybe the notification vanished. Maybe famous gym trainers had better things to do than check who accidentally liked ancient photos at nearly 2 in the morning. By sunrise, I had almost convinced myself I was safe. Then the front door of Iron Haven opened at 6:10. Caleb Brooks walked in, crossed the gym without looking away from me, placed his phone face up on my counter, and said, "Ethan, were you looking at me last night?" For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. The blender behind me was still humming, the espresso machine was still hissing, and somewhere near the squat racks, a 70-pound dumbbell hit the rubber floor with a dull thud, but all of it sounded far away, like I was underwater. Caleb's phone lay between us on the counter, bright and unforgiving. On the screen was his old photo, the one I had liked by accident, and beneath it was the tiny proof of my disaster. "Ethan Walker liked your photo." My name looked wrong there, too personal, too exposed, like somebody had pulled my diary out of my backpack and read it over the gym speakers. I wiped my hands on my apron even though they were not wet. "I am sorry," I said too fast. "It was an accident. I was half asleep. I did not mean to bother you." Caleb did not move. That was one of the worst things about him. Other alphas filled silence with posture, with noise, with that restless need to prove they owned the space. Caleb simply stood there, 6 feet 2 inches of quiet control, watching me like he could hear every panicked thought trying to escape my skull. His gray eyes flicked to my face, then to my hands, then to the cuff of my hoodie where my fingers were pressing too hard against the hidden suppressant patch. "That picture is 3 years old," he said. His voice was not angry. Somehow, that made it worse. Heat climbed up my neck and burned behind my ears. I know. The second the words left my mouth, I wanted to disappear into the ice machine. His eyebrow lifted just barely. "So you were looking that far back." I opened my mouth, closed it, then looked down at the row of plastic cups beside the register as if they might offer legal advice. I was not trying to be weird. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. I just could not sleep, and your profile was there. And then I scrolled, and then my thumb slipped. I unliked it right away. A quiet pause stretched between us. I expected a cold laugh. I expected him to tell me I was creepy, pathetic, exactly the kind of person who should know better than to stare at someone like him from behind a counter. Instead, Caleb leaned one elbow against the edge of the smoothie bar and lowered his voice so only I could hear. You unliked it too fast. I blinked. What? That was the rude part. My brain stopped working for a full 3 seconds. I looked up despite myself, and there it was, almost impossible to believe, a slight curve at the corner of his mouth. Not a smile exactly, but the beginning of one, hidden like sunlight under a closed door. My panic stumbled into confusion. Are you making fun of me? A little, he said, but not in the way you think. I should have relaxed. I should have laughed and let the awkwardness drain away like spilled water. But being noticed had never meant safety to me. In high school, one alpha had decided my nervousness was an invitation. In college, a group of guys had joked about omega scent blockers like they were public information. I had learned to keep my hoodie up, my scent hidden, my gaze low, and my wants so private they barely felt real. Caleb Brooks was not those people, but my body did not know the difference yet. My fingers tightened around my sleeve. The adhesive under it tugged against my skin, loosened by sweat and fear. I felt the first cold. Edge peel free. My stomach dropped. Caleb noticed before I could fix it. His expression changed, not with hunger, not with mockery, but with instant attention. Ethan, he said softly, your patch. Then the air around me shifted, and the secret I had spent years hiding began to slip into the open. The first trace of my scent escaped before I could stop it, soft and warm against the cold air of the gym, like vanilla stirred into rainwater, like fresh paper opened beneath a summer storm. It was not strong, not to me, but in Iron Haven Fitness, where the air was usually packed with sweat, steel, citrus disinfectant, and alpha confidence. It landed like a match in a quiet room. The change was immediate. The man at the cable machine slowed his reps. 2 guys near the bench press looked over their shoulders. A woman on the treadmill glanced up from her phone. The low rhythm of the gym did not stop, not completely, but it faltered, and that was enough to send my heart slamming against my ribs. I yanked at my sleeve, trying to press the patch back down, but my fingers were clumsy, too cold and too shaky to obey me. The adhesive had curled at the edge. Useless. My secret was peeling away in public, right in front of the one person I had least wanted to see me panic. Caleb's expression sharpened, but not in the way I feared. There was no amusement now, no teasing curve at his mouth. His eyes moved once across the room, reading every turned head, every pause, every shift in posture. Then he stepped sideways, placing himself between me and the gym floor so naturally that for half a second, I did not understand what he had done. His body blocked the counter opening. His broad shoulders cut off the sight line from the free weight area. The cedarwood and winter mint of his alpha scent spread into the air, steady and controlled, not harsh, not overwhelming, just firm enough to build a wall I could stand behind. Back to your sets, Caleb said. He did not raise his voice, but it carried across the room with the clean snap of a whistle. Now, people moved. Not because he shouted. Not because he threatened anyone. They moved because Caleb Brooks had a way of making obedience feel like the most reasonable choice in the world. Dumbbells lifted again. Treadmills hummed. Conversations restarted in awkward, quieter pieces. Still, I could feel my face burning, my pulse too loud in my ears. I wanted to crawl under the counter and stay there until closing. I need to go, I whispered. My voice cracked on the last word. Caleb turned back to me, and the command in him disappeared so completely it almost made me dizzy. Okay, he said. We will go to my office. You can fix it there. I stared at him. I cannot leave the bar. Maya can cover for 5 minutes. He looked past me and gave a small nod to Maya, the front desk manager, who had already seen enough to understand. She hurried over without asking questions, her ponytail bouncing against her Iron Haven hoodie. I have got it, she said gently, stepping behind the register. Go breathe, Ethan. That kindness almost broke me. I kept my head down as Caleb opened the side gate and guided me through without touching me. He walked close enough that his scent kept the room at a distance, but not so close that I felt trapped. That mattered more than I knew how to say. We passed the rows of lockers, the stretching mats, the framed photos of members smiling beside transformation charts. Every mirror seemed determined to show me exactly how small I looked in my oversized hoodie, pale and shaking, while Caleb moved beside me like a dark line drawn between me and the world. His office was near the back, past the staff hallway, a small room with a desk, a filing cabinet, a first aid kit, and one narrow window looking out at the parking lot. He opened the door and stepped aside. "You go in first," he said. "I will stay by the door unless you ask me to move." I looked at him then, really looked, and something inside my fear loosened. Caleb had confronted me because of a stupid accidental like, but now, when he had every chance to make me feel cornered, he was giving me exits. I walked into the office, and for the first time that morning, I believed I might survive being seen. Caleb closed the office door halfway, leaving a clear gap to the hallway, and somehow that small choice made the room feel less like a cage. I stood near the desk with one hand clamped over my sleeve, staring at the carpet while my breathing tried to decide whether it wanted to slow down or give up completely. The office was painfully ordinary, which made the moment feel stranger. A calendar from a local physical therapy clinic hung on the wall. A stack of client intake forms sat beside a mug full of black pens. There was a pair of clean white sneakers under the desk, a folded towel on the filing cabinet, and a framed photo of Caleb with a college track team, his younger face unsmiling under stadium lights. Outside, the gym kept moving, muffled by the door. Machines clicked. Someone laughed too loudly. The world had not ended, even though mine felt like it had cracked open on the smoothie bar counter. Caleb crossed to the first aid kit slowly, like he was approaching a nervous animal he did not want to scare. He opened it, took out a sealed suppressant patch, and placed it on the desk without stepping closer. "This is new," he said. "Unscented brand. I keep them for members who forget theirs." I looked at the packet, then at him. "You keep Omega supplies in your office?" His eyes met mine. People should not have to explain themselves in public. The answer was so simple that I did not know what to do with it. I had expected questions, judgment, maybe the careful politeness that made shame feel even sharper. Instead, he turned his back slightly and faced the window. "Take your time." My fingers trembled as I peeled away the failed patch and replaced it with the new one. The cool adhesive settled against my skin, and after a few seconds, the exposed edge of my scent began to soften, folding back into me like a curtain being drawn. I should have felt relieved. I did feel relieved, but embarrassment rushed in to fill the space fear had left behind. "I am sorry," I said. "I know I keep saying that, but I really am. First the picture, then the patch, and now you are hiding me in your office like I caused a fire drill." Caleb looked over his shoulder. "You did not cause anything." Everyone looked. People look when something unexpected happens. That does not make it better. "No," he said, turning fully now. "It does not." The honesty stole the argument from my mouth. He leaned against the windowsill, arms relaxed at his sides, giving me the whole center of the room as if it belonged to me. "Did someone make you feel unsafe here before?" I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "Here? No, not exactly." His gaze sharpened, quiet and patient. I hated that patience because it made me want to answer. "A few years ago," I said, staring at the edge of his desk, "I learned that being noticed as an Omega can turn normal people into people who think your privacy is optional. So I got very good at not being noticed." Caleb did not interrupt. He did not fill the silence with outrage or sympathy. He just listened, and that made the words keep coming. "Then I saw you. Every morning. You never crowded anyone. You never joked about people who were weaker than you. You corrected form, opened doors, carried boxes for Maya, told loud clients to lower their voices. I guess I started looking because you were the first alpha in a long time who made the room feel less dangerous, not more." My face burned the second I finished. That sounded less embarrassing in my head. A soft breath left him, almost a laugh. It did not sound embarrassing. I glanced up. Then what did it sound like? Caleb was quiet for a moment, and when he answered, his voice had lost every sharp edge from the counter. "Lonely." The word landed too close to the truth. I looked away before my eyes could betray me. On the desk, his phone buzzed once with a client notification, but he ignored it. "For what it is worth," he said, "I did not come to the bar to shame you." "Then why did you come?" He reached into his jacket pocket, took out his phone, unlocked it, and turned the screen toward me. It was not the old competition picture. It was a gym story from months ago, captured from the Iron Haven account. In the corner of the frame, behind the smoothie bar, I was laughing at something Maya had said, sunlight catching the side of my face. I barely recognized myself. Caleb looked almost uncomfortable for the first time. Because you were not the only one looking. I stared at the picture on Caleb's phone until the office seemed to tilt around me. It was such an ordinary image that it should not have mattered. The Iron Haven story had probably been posted on a random Tuesday, one of those promotional clips Maya made when the morning light looked good through the front windows. In the photo, the smoothie bar was clean, the fruit bins were lined up by color, and I was caught mid-laugh with one hand wrapped around a towel and my hoodie sleeve pushed halfway up my arm. I looked softer than I felt, younger, almost unguarded. The kind of person I only became when I forgot the world was watching. Caleb lowered the phone before I could decide whether to feel flattered or terrified. I did not save it for a strange reason, he said quietly. I saved it because I remembered that morning. My throat tightened. What happened that morning? A kid spilled a whole chocolate protein shake by the entrance. His mother looked like she wanted to sink through the floor. Everyone stared. You came around the counter with napkins, told the kid that you had once dropped an entire tray of drinks during your first week, and made him laugh before he could cry. I remembered that. Barely. It had been nothing to me, just a small disaster before 8 in the morning. You noticed that? I noticed more than people think. He slid the phone back into his pocket, and for the first time since I had met him, Caleb Brooks looked almost uncertain. Not weak. Never that. Just careful, like he knew one wrong word could send me running. I noticed you made extra ginger tea for Mrs. Alvarez when her knees hurt after class. I noticed you switch the music lower when the therapy clients come in. I noticed you keep granola bars under the counter for the college freshmen who forget to eat before training. My face warmed in a different way now, less like shame and more like standing too close to a heater after a long walk in the cold. That does not mean anything. It means you pay attention to people who do not expect kindness. I looked down at my sneakers. They were old, white once, now gray at the edges from months of bus rides and gym floors. Maybe I know what it feels like to need it. The words came out before I could soften them. Caleb did not pounce on them. He let them sit between us, quiet and real. Outside the office, someone knocked lightly on the doorframe. Maya peeked through the opening, her expression gentle but practical. Ethan, take 10 more minutes if you need it. I can handle the bar. I shook my head too quickly. No, I should go back. Caleb straightened. You do not have to prove anything. I know. I swallowed. But if I hide too long, it becomes worse in my head. Something in his eyes shifted, a flicker of respect that made my stomach flutter. He opened the door wider and stepped out first, not leading me like I belonged to him, just returning to the hallway ahead of me like a shield that did not need to announce itself. When we walked back into the gym, the air changed again, but this time I did not let it swallow me. A few people glanced over. Most looked away when Caleb's gaze passed across the room. Maya gave me a small thumbs up from behind the counter. I slipped back to my station, washed my hands, and reached for a blender cup with fingers that were still shaky but working. Caleb stayed on the customer side of the counter. Black coffee protein, no sugar? I asked, proud that my voice only trembled a little. Yes, he said. Then, after a beat, and whatever you usually make for yourself. I looked up. For me, you have been here since 5:30. You have not eaten. I should have asked how he knew that. I should have told him it was not his business. Instead, I made his drink, then poured myself a strawberry banana smoothie with oat milk, because my hands needed something normal to do. When I passed his cup over, our fingers did not touch. Caleb made sure of it, but his eyes held mine for one impossible second longer than usual. For the record, he said, voice low enough that only I could hear. I was not upset that you liked the picture. My heart kicked once against my ribs. Then what upset you? His mouth curved slightly, that hidden almost smile returning at the edge. That you thought you had to take it back. I almost dropped my own smoothie. The cup was cold against my palm, sweating little beads of water onto my fingers, but my face felt warm enough to steam the lid. Caleb said it so calmly, like he was discussing workout schedules or coffee orders, not pulling the pin from the most embarrassing secret I had ever tried to hide. You thought you had to take it back. The words followed me for the next hour while the morning rush rolled through Iron Haven Fitness. I made shakes, scanned membership cards when Maya stepped away, restocked bananas, and pretended I was not aware of Caleb moving through the gym like a quiet weather system. He corrected a client's deadlift form near the mirror wall. He adjusted a resistance band for Mrs. Alvarez. He bent to pick up a towel someone had left on the floor and tossed it into the laundry bin without making a speech about it. Every ordinary thing he did felt unfairly noticeable now. Before that morning, watching him had been a secret habit, tucked away in the safest corner of my mind. Now the secret had a voice, gray eyes, and a black coffee protein shake sitting half-finished on the counter beside him. At 7:45, when the rush finally thinned, Caleb returned to the smoothie bar with his empty cup. "You are staring again," he said. I nearly knocked over the tub of vanilla protein powder. "I am not. You are. I was checking whether you finished your drink." From 20 feet away, his mouth did that almost smile again, and I hated how much calmer it made me. I took the cup from him and threw it into the recycling bin with more force than necessary. Maybe I have excellent customer service instincts. Maybe. He rested one hand on the counter, leaving plenty of space between us. My 9 o'clock client canceled. My heart gave one confused jump. "Okay. You said you do not feel safe being noticed in places like this." I looked around quickly, but the nearest member was wearing headphones and arguing silently with a treadmill incline. "I said too much in your office." "You said enough." Caleb's voice softened. "There is a staff training room in the back. No windows, no mirrors facing the main floor. I can show you how to use the equipment after your shift, if you want. Not because you need fixing, because knowing what your body can do makes a room feel different." I wanted to say no. No was safe. No kept lines clean. No turned everything back into a normal workday where Caleb was just the alpha trainer and I was just the omega who made smoothies. But another part of me, a smaller, braver part one usually ignored, pictured myself walking through the gym without shrinking my shoulders. "I have class at noon," I said. "We would be done by 10:30. I have never lifted anything heavier than a crate of almond milk. Then we start lighter than that." I looked at him, searching for the catch, the pressure, the hidden alpha pride waiting to turn kindness into ownership. I found none of it. Only patience. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. Caleb's gaze flicked to the counter between us, then back to me. "Because yesterday, before any of this happened, you carried 2 cases of water from storage by yourself when 3 people could have helped you, and you looked relieved that nobody offered." My throat tightened. That is a strange thing to notice. So was a 3-year-old picture. The laugh escaped before I could stop it, small and startled, and Caleb's expression changed as if he had been handed something fragile. For a second, the gym noise faded again, but this time it did not feel like drowning. It felt like standing at the edge of a door I had not decided whether to open. Then a voice cut in from the side of the counter. "Careful, Ethan," said Mason Reed, another trainer, his smile polished and unpleasant. "First he catches you stalking his profile, now he is giving you private lessons. People might get the wrong idea." The warmth inside me vanished. My hand tightened around my smoothie cup. Caleb turned his head slowly, and though his voice stayed even, the air around him went cold and clear. "Then people should learn to think before they speak." Mason's smile did not disappear right away, but it thinned, like paper held too close to a flame. He was the kind of alpha who liked an audience, always leaning against machines he was not using, always laughing loud enough to make sure people knew he belonged in the room. I had seen him make small comments before, little jokes aimed at receptionists, new members, anyone who seemed unlikely to answer back. Usually, people let it slide because Mason was charming when managers were watching and careful when they were not. That morning, unfortunately for him, Caleb was watching. The smoothie bar felt too bright, every chrome surface reflecting the tension I wanted to escape. My first instinct was to apologize, even though I had done nothing wrong. My second instinct was to lower my eyes and become harmless. But Caleb's words hung in the air between us, steady and clean. "People should learn to think before they speak." Mason lifted both hands in a lazy surrender. "Relax, Brooks." It was a joke. Caleb did not move. Jokes are supposed to be funny. A few feet away, Maya stopped pretending to organize membership cards. Someone at the nearest treadmill slowed their pace. I hated that people were listening. I hated even more that part of me was grateful. Mason glanced at me, and there it was again, that polished little smirk. "No offense, Ethan. I just did not know you were getting special attention now." My fingers tightened around the edge of the counter until the plastic lid of my smoothie bent under my thumb. Before Caleb could answer, something unexpected rose in my chest. It was not courage exactly. Courage sounded too clean, too heroic. This felt smaller and messier, like a match being struck with shaking hands. It is not special attention, I said. My voice came out quiet, but it came out. Mason blinked, surprised that I had spoken at all. I forced myself to keep going. It is a training session after my shift. You make those every day? So unless you think every member you train is stalking you, maybe do not use that word for me. Silence followed. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. Caleb turned his head just enough to look at me, and the respect in his eyes almost knocked the breath out of me. Mason gave a short laugh, but this time it had no audience to hold it up. Fine, he said. Did not mean anything by it. Then you can prove that by walking away, Caleb said. Mason's jaw tightened, but he walked away, grabbing a towel from the rack with more force than necessary before disappearing toward the locker hallway. The gym exhaled around us. Machines resumed. Conversations restarted. Maya looked at me like she wanted to cheer, but knew I would vanish if she did. I stared at the blender base, trying to understand what had just happened. I had answered back. In public. To an alpha. And the ceiling had not fallen in. Caleb remained where he was, close enough to be present, far enough not to crowd me. You did not need me for that, he said softly. I swallowed, still trembling. I thought I did. Maybe you needed a second to remember. His words landed quietly, but they stayed with me. At 9 o'clock, when my shift ended, I almost changed my mind about the training room 3 separate times. I could have blamed class, homework, a fake headache, anything. But when I came around the counter with my backpack over one shoulder, Caleb was waiting by the staff hallway with 2 bottles of water and a folded towel. He did not comment on my nervousness. He simply handed me 1 bottle and said, "We start with breathing." The training room was smaller than the main gym, with pale walls, soft mats, a rack of light dumbbells, and no mirrors except one narrow panel near the door. Caleb placed a 5-pound weight on the floor, then stepped back. "You decide where I stand," he said. I looked at the open space at the door at him. "There is fine." He nodded and stayed exactly there. For the next 40 minutes, he taught me how to plant my feet, how to keep my shoulders loose, how to lift without shrinking into myself. Nothing dramatic happened. No grand confession. No sudden touch. Just Caleb counting calmly while I discovered that my body was not only something to hide. It could hold weight. It could take up space. It could choose. When I finished my last set, breathless and flushed, Caleb handed me the towel. "Good work, Ethan." I looked down at the 5-pound dumbbell like it had turned into a trophy. It was not much. It was more than yesterday. I smiled before I could stop myself. Then his phone buzzed on the bench beside him. Caleb glanced at the screen, and the softness left his face. I saw only one name before he turned it over. Mason Reed. Under it was a message preview that made my stomach go cold. Ask Ethan what really happened at his old college. The message seemed to freeze the room. For one strange second, I could hear everything too clearly. The hum of the air vent, the faint squeak of sneakers from the main floor, the tiny crackle of plastic as my fingers tightened around the water bottle. Caleb turned his phone face down so quickly that I knew he had not wanted me to see it, but the damage was already done. My old college. The words reached into a place I kept locked behind schedules, suppressants, and polite smiles. I stepped back from the bench, and the 5-pound dumbbell near my shoe suddenly looked ridiculous, like a toy pretending to be a shield. Caleb noticed the change in me immediately. "Ethan," he said, his voice careful. "You do not have to explain anything because of a message from Mason." I tried to answer, but my throat felt too tight. The training room walls, which had seemed calm a minute ago, now felt closer than before. I looked toward the door. It was open. Caleb had kept it open exactly the way he promised. That helped, but not enough. "How does he know about that?" I asked. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone standing several feet away from my body. Caleb picked up his phone, read the full message, and his jaw set in a way I had not seen before. Not loud, not explosive, just still. "He says he knows someone who went there." Of course he did. That was how rumors survived. They did not need truth. They only needed a person willing to carry them from one room to another. I sank onto the edge of the bench and stared at my hands. At Northlake, there was an alpha in my lab group. His name was Carter. He was popular, the kind of guy professors trusted because he knew when to smile. I was on stronger suppressants then, but one day my patch failed during a review session. Nothing dramatic happened, not really. I left early. He followed me outside and started acting like my privacy was something he had earned because he noticed I was scared. Caleb remained by the wall, his hands loose at his sides, letting me choose whether his silence felt like space or support. I kept going because stopping would make the memory bigger. I reported him after he kept showing up where I worked. The school said there was not enough evidence to punish anyone, but somehow everyone found out I was an omega using blockers. By the end of the semester, people were not asking what he did. They were asking what I had done to make him interested. My laugh came out flat and tired. So I transferred, changed my number, deleted almost every social account, and learned not to like pictures by accident. Caleb's eyes softened, and that almost hurt more than anger would have. I am sorry they did that to you. I shook my head. Do not make it sound huge. It was not some movie tragedy. It was just 1,000 small moments where I became less and less myself until hiding felt normal. That is huge, he said, even if it happened quietly. The words hit something fragile in me. I looked away before my eyes could burn. His phone buzzed again, but this time Caleb did not look at it. He walked to the door and closed it only halfway, still leaving the opening visible, then turned back. Mason does not get to use your past as entertainment. You cannot stop people from talking. No, Caleb said, but I can decide what kind of gym this is. I looked up. What does that mean? Before he answered, Maya appeared in the hallway, her expression tense. Caleb, you need to see this. She held up her phone. On the screen was the Iron Haven staff group chat, and Mason had posted a message dressed up like concern but shaped like a knife. Maybe ask why Ethan left Northlake before everyone starts treating him like the victim. My stomach dropped so fast I felt dizzy. Caleb read it once. Then he looked at me, and for the first time since I met him, his calm did not feel cold at all. It felt like shelter. We are going to handle this, he said. Not by hiding you. By telling the truth only if you choose to. And by making sure he answers for spreading something that was never his to touch. I did not want to walk back. Into the gym. Every part of me wanted to stay in the training room with the door half open, where the air smelled faintly of clean towels and winter mint, and where the worst thing in front of me was a dumbbell I had already learned how to lift. But hiding had a cost. I knew that better than anyone. Hiding had taken my old school, my old friends, my confidence, and almost the small, honest parts of myself I still had left. So when Caleb asked me what I wanted to do, I surprised all three of us by standing up. My knees felt unsteady, but my voice did not disappear. I do not want to explain my whole life to strangers, I said. But I do want Mason to stop deciding what people are allowed to think about me. Caleb nodded once, like that was the only answer he needed. Maya walked beside me on one side, Caleb on the other, and together we returned to the front floor of Iron Haven Fitness. The gym had that strange quiet people create when they are pretending not to know something. Mason was near the front desk with his phone in hand, wearing the innocent expression of a man who thought consequences were for other people. Caleb stopped in the center of the lobby, not close enough to threaten, not loud enough to perform, but steady enough that everyone understood the room had changed. Mason, he said, go to the office. Now. Mason laughed under his breath. Seriously? Over a group chat? Maya raised her phone. Over sharing personal information about a coworker to embarrass him. Over creating a hostile workplace. Over doing it during business hours on a company channel. The color shifted in Mason's face. For the first time, his charm had nowhere to land. He looked at me, maybe hoping I would shrink, maybe hoping I would make it easier for him by looking ashamed. I did not. My hands were shaking, but I held my smoothie cup with both palms and met his eyes for one clean second. What happened at Northlake was not your story, I said. The lobby went still. My voice was quiet, but it carried because no one was moving. I left because someone made me feel unsafe, and people chose gossip over truth. I will not let you bring that here. Mason opened his mouth, but Maya cut in with a professional calm sharper than any shout. Office. Now. He went. Not dramatically. Not with some grand defeat. Just a man walking down a hallway because, for once, the room did not protect him. After that, the day did not magically become easy. People still glanced at me. My chest still felt tight. But something had shifted. Mrs. Alvarez came by the counter and asked for her ginger tea like nothing strange had happened, then added, "Extra honey today, sweetheart." For both of us. A freshman left a granola bar beside my register with a sticky note that said thank you for always having one. Maya squeezed my shoulder only after asking if it was okay. And Caleb, somehow, did the most impossible thing of all. He gave me space. He trained clients, answered questions, and let the gym settle around me without turning my pain into a spectacle. Near closing, when the last treadmill finally stopped and the front windows turned dark with evening, I found a folded towel on the smoothie bar with a new suppressant patch, a bottle of water, and a sticky note written in Caleb's neat, square handwriting. It said, "You do not have to take yourself back." I stared at those words until the edges blurred. Then I looked across the gym. Caleb was by the door, holding his black gym bag, waiting without demanding. I walked over slowly. "For the record," I said, my voice still small but honest, I did not regret liking the picture. His gray eyes warmed in a way I had never seen before. "Good," he said, "because I was hoping you would do it again on purpose." And for the first time in years, being seen did not feel like danger. It felt like the beginning of a life where I did not have to hide just to be safe.